I'll now call back to order the regular meeting of the Lake Forest School District 67 Board of Education for February 25th, 2020. May I have a roll call vote, or may I have a roll call, please, Janice?
Mr. England?
Here.
Dr. Lemke?
Here.
Mr. Chun?
Here.
Mr. Folker?
Here.
Mr. Borkowski?
Here.
Mrs. Sands?
Here.
Mrs. Levert?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you all for coming. Tonight I'd like to discuss a topic which I call mission or money. As part of this, I'll discuss the District 67 Board's rationale for our recent tax levy decision, but I'd like to start by providing a higher level perspective, discussing what our board's philosophy is, or at minimum, what my own personal philosophy is. There are many goals that a Board of Education can have. Two goals that often get discussed are mission and money. What do each of these goals look like? The mission goal could be stated as achieving the district's stated mission and vision, and the money goal could be stated by some as being fiscally responsible, while others might say it really means lowering taxes. Which of these two goals is more important? Is the true goal of the board to achieve the vision at any cost? Or should our top priority as board members be to save every last dollar for the taxpayers with an end goal of trying to never raise taxes? Different people have different opinions, but I believe the taxpayers of Lake Forest elected these 7 board members up here because the taxpayers want Lake Forest to have exceptional public schools, and they trust us to get that vision accomplished in a fiscally responsible manner. That's the platform on which most of us were elected in one form or another. That, in my opinion, is our job. My belief is that the vast majority of our taxpayers understand that achieving our vision, which is how I measure it if we have exceptional schools, does cost money. No one wants us to be foolish with the resources we have to access. No one wants us to be foolish with the resources that we have access to. At the same time, I do believe that our taxpayers understand that the value created from having excellent schools, both in developing our youth into the future leaders of the world and in terms of the direct financial benefit from real estate appreciation. Let's take a quick look at the vision goal. Those of you who have listened to my reports over the past 5 years know that District 67 does indeed have a defined vision statement, as well as a mission statement and milestones. I only have 2 more opportunities to talk about our vision before I resign from this board, and I do plan to use both opportunities to the fullest. I won't go in depth tonight on the vision, but I will quickly touch on it. District 67 vision statement is centered around the growth of all students. We see this similar theme and similar words in the aligned mission statement, as well as in the core values. How do we measure our success in terms of achieving the vision? We have a set of 6 milestones which guide our progress in pursuing the vision. A few things I know to be true about our vision. First, the achievement of our vision is an excellent barometer of whether we are an exceptional school district or not. The vision was created 6 years ago with broad community-wide involvement. We had as diverse and inclusive a group of stakeholders as we have ever had on any project during my time on this board. Our vision may not be perfect, and yes, after 6 years, it is time to do a review of it and create the next iteration of it. But our vision does remain the best description of what this community stated it wants our school district to be. Second thing I know about our vision is that focusing on achieving the vision and the related milestones do drive our behavior. We talk about the vision all the time at board meetings, and because of that, we get results. The vision drives this board's decision-making process, it drives the administration's recommendations to us, and it drives our teachers and staff's actions with our students. We truly are a vision-centric district. These are not just words, they're a way of life in District 67. That does not happen by accident. It starts with this board's constant focus on the vision, and it flows throughout the entire organization. The third thing I know to be true is that achieving the vision takes focus, and it also takes money. It takes effort and financial resources. Whether it's paying for world-class teachers or reimagining our learning spaces, and both of those are specific milestones, they require money. Now let's shift our attention to the second goal that I stated at the start, the money goal. What does it mean to be fiscally responsible? Let's start with the tax levy, since that affects every single Lake Forest taxpayer. The tax levy is the way our school districts get most of its money from Lake Forest residents paying real estate taxes. The state of Illinois has a defined law which caps the amount that a school board is permitted to increase its tax levy each year. If a school board wants to exceed that legally defined amount, the school board must go through a referendum process. This board believes that we can achieve our vision without the use of a large-scale referendum. Rather, we optimize every dollar that we have access to through much smaller annual tax levy increases. Every year, this board has detailed discussions about whether we should raise the tax levy the maximum amount permitted by law. It is most certainly not a foregone conclusion. For reference, the maximum increase permitted by law this year is 1.9%. On average, that means a homeowner of a $1 million house in Lake Forest will see an increase of approximately $66. Do we care about an increase of $66 to a homeowner? Yes, this board cares very much about that, and that is why we quiz our administrators every year to demonstrate in concrete terms why the district needs the additional money. And once again, this year, we quizzed the team on just that topic. The answer to the question is relatively simple. The list of projects required to fully achieve the vision is long, and the cost to implement them all far exceeds our financial resources. In addition, a large portion of our annual expenses are salaries, which increase every year. Our teachers' contract dictates the increases they receive each year, and those small increases, which are incredibly well-deserved, that amount alone is greater than 1.9%. So if we are serious about achieving the vision, and this board has demonstrated that it is indeed serious about that, then increasing the levy is necessary. A few interesting and extremely important facts to consider when talking about what fiscally responsible means in our district with an eye on our taxpayers. The District 67 tax rate is the lowest tax rate among all elementary districts in Lake County. The District 67 tax rate is the second lowest among the 368 elementary school districts in the entire state of Illinois. And the District 67 tax rate is the third lowest among all 852 school districts, elementary, high school, and/or unit districts in the entire state of Illinois. District 67 also maintains a AAA bond rating, which is the highest possible rating. We're one of only 73 school districts in the United States to achieve that. I believe these facts are strong measures of our fiscal responsibility while we simultaneously and aggressively pursue achieving the vision. Given our incredibly low tax rate relative to all other districts in the state, our consistent achievement of the AAA bond rating, and our concrete need for additional funds in order to achieve the vision, I believe that increasing the tax levy by the 1.9% permitted by Illinois law is not only an acceptable action to take, I believe it is indeed the most fiscally responsible decision that we could make. Taking less would save each taxpayer a few dollars, but taking less would absolutely impact our ability to achieve the vision, a vision which was created by the community and a vision which the community expects us to achieve. The long-term positive impact on achieving the vision far outweighs the minimal short-term savings individuals would see. Different communities have different levels of resources, and they have different expectations for their public schools. In Lake Forest, we're fortunate to have a high level of resources, and we also have an amazing taxpayer base which has high expectations for the type of schools they desire. District 67 board has, correctly, in my opinion, a sharp focus on achieving the vision while still ensuring fiscal responsibility at every turn. This board accepts the responsibility to achieve the desired vision while treating every dollar as if it were our own. We manage the resources we have access to, and we constantly determine how to achieve the optimal return on every dollar we spend. So ultimately, what is our goal? Our goal is to create and maintain an exceptional school district through the achievement of our vision, and to do that in a fiscally responsible manner. We do not need to choose mission or money. They are not mutually exclusive. It turns out they are not actually two conflicting goals at all. Rather, they are entirely intertwined with each other, and managing both simultaneously is part of the DNA of this board, as well as the administration and the staff of this district. To our taxpayers, thank you for the trust you put in each of us. You elected us to do a job, and I speak for all 7 board members when I say that we do our best every day to achieve your desired vision in a fiscally responsible manner. Thank you. We now move to the superintendent's report.
All right, there are several parts to the superintendent's report. First part, I would like to say congratulations to 8th grader Alexander Anderson, who was named our school champion, and runner-up 7th grader Carolyn Stack for the DPM's Spelling Bee. So thank you to all the work that went into that from teachers and parents and also the audience, and we're proud to have Alexandra represent our school at the sectional competition next month. Also, thank you to the APT for setting up the annual art fair voting. I had a number of amazing artists contribute to the fair and excited to see the outcome. If you stop by Deer Path, the art fair on Monday, February 24th, it was from 5 till 7 to view the pieces. In addition, there were 10 students chosen to participate in the youth art show at the gallery in Lake Forest. So congratulations to Andrew Granado, Reese Kelly, Phoebe Silver, Michael Bayan, Otto Hector, Adler Schlacker, John White, Luca Cisternino, Sadie Lohmuller, and Declan Stock. On a less exciting note, but nonetheless important, we're going to be sending out the CSCI survey. The CSCI survey is something we've talked about. It's the Comprehensive School Climate Inventory Survey. Parents are surveyed every other year to encourage their participation, but less known is the fact that the completion of the CSCI has a significant impact on our state rating, exemplary versus commendable. For the student survey, any completion rate less than 95% counts progressively against the district on the state's rubric. It's important, therefore, both to our schools, to help our schools, and also to help our public perception, to encourage students to complete the survey. All responses are anonymous. We've been partnering with the National School for Climate Center for a number of years now. They do an analysis, and the analysis is then reported out publicly. Finally, there's a sobering podcast or webcast today from the head of the CDC, Communicable Disease and Pulmonary guidance on the coronavirus. As yet, there is no formal guidance for schools on the coronavirus. We're going to be hearing a great deal about this in the coming days and weeks and perhaps months. As we had with the swine flu, there was guidance that came out both from the ROE and from the CDC and ultimately from the state about that, and we're awaiting that. We're going to have a cabinet meeting tomorrow to begin preparations for things that we might anticipate down the road that could be coming our way should the coronavirus spread to the state of Illinois. As of today, there are only 2 confirmed cases in the state. However, the head of the CDC discussed today that there are expectations that this virus is likely to wind up coming to our shores and also then to our state. So we are going to take this very seriously and begin our preparations for that tomorrow.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions for the superintendent?
There's one other part of the superintendent's report, and this is a lot more exciting than anything else that I've talked about. It's actually some good news from Dr. McHugh.
So good evening. This is just a little celebration about bridges in mathematics. District 67 adopted bridges about 7 years ago, and the Math Learning Center, shown here in this website, who develop bridges, they reach out to schools and they just want educators' perspectives about the program. And last year they reached out to District 67 to see if they could come to a school and film bridges in action. So they came to Sheridan, although other schools are represented in the video. And I just want to be clear that this represents all the wonderful work going on in all 4 of the buildings in the district, and we are happy to share this with you. So this can actually be accessed from the Bridges website. If you scroll down, it's at the bottom. It's called The Power of Perseverance. It's about 3 minutes long, and I'd like to share it with you. I think that one of the huge benefits of having Bridges for Mathematics is the fact that it does encourage multiple ways of problem solving.
I think that the idea of knowing that there isn't one way to get to the right answer, I think lots of times students are faced with a problem and they're like, oh, I can't solve that because nobody's taught me how to do that yet. The changes that I see for all of our students is the amount of risk-taking, recognizing that there's more than one answer to a problem, there's more than one strategy, and the kids celebrate each other's mathematical thinking.
To give kids multiple ways of solving problems, to promote that critical thinking, deepen that conceptual understanding, using visual models, as opposed to jumping right to the algorithm.
In Bridges, the students are in charge of their learning. Whether it be a game, whether it be in a small group, they're able to apply the skills that they learn on their own. Before, it was a lot of the teacher talking and asking questions to the students, and now it's a lot of student interaction with each other. And so we have this new generation that's coming forward that feel good about math. They realize math is fun. It is no longer something they're inhibited by. It's empowering for them.
It's not just about learning rote facts, but it's about the communication skills, the critical thinking skills, all of these that we previously called 21st century skills, but these skills that these students are going to need to thrive in the world that they're going to be a part of. I think that Bridges really fosters that.
And the best example I have of that is a parent who called me to say that their child was respectfully disagreeing about their bedtime and gave evidence to support their claim.
One of the things that I'm really recognizing is the amount of social emotional learning that's also taking place, this level of communication, making eye contact, being able to have different ideas and share them respectfully, that came about from Bridges.
And it creates this debate in a classroom of what is the best way, the most efficient way to do it. And I think that that's preparing them for the world today.
Ultimately, our responsibility is to prepare them for life.
Seeing children confidently debating answers, confidently giving their evidence, solving problems that I find truly amazing.
We both have different approaches to this, but it's okay.
I think that it's important in today's world in general. It's the idea that we can have differing opinions and still value each other.
They're no longer being told how to do something, they're discovering how to do something. And that's incredibly empowering to them.
So many times as a teacher you were worried, did I give enough face time to each of the kiddos to make them feel valued and important? And it switches it to the children are giving that face time and they're making each other feel valued.
Students are able to identify what skills they need to work on and choose whatever workplace is appropriate for their needs, so it has that self-motivated learning.
I saw the kids talking to one another. Even some of our youngest students were so fluent with mental math operations. I couldn't believe the level that they were doing that. I was sold on Bridges from my first week on the job.
To see my kids enjoying and loving math as much as they do, it touches my heart, because I think there are so many people that would describe themselves as, I'm not a math person, and I don't see my kids saying that. They don't say that about themselves. They are mathematicians that persevere.
So that's a nice little highlight. Adorable kids, but local districts now have been seeing this and are reaching out to do school visits, so sorry about teachers. They're coming. They already have come. They've come to Sheridan. We've got a school visit next week, but people want to come and see the great things going on, which is partially the curriculum, but also like the teachers make it look really easy, and it's not easy at all. So we've got a lot of good things going on in math, and this is just one celebration of that.
Thank you, Jeff. Questions from the board?
Jeff, what grade level does Bridges cover?
It goes through 5th grade.
Great. And then what are we augmenting from 6th through 8th?
We use connected math for grades 6 through 8.
Mike, I'll have a question, more of a comment. One of the things that I loved about that video, Jeff, is you're highlighting the curriculum, but the video captured so many of the investments that the administration and the district and the taxpayers are making. It highlighted the reimagined spaces with how students were sitting, writing on their desks, obviously the curriculum, the incredible math specialists that we have, the investment in our tremendous teachers. So it just really was a great integrated story about the strategic plan that Mike was talking about earlier. Great stuff.
Jeff, I'm chuckling a little bit because I just gave a report on mission and money. And one of our milestones is partnership. I love the video. I'm just wondering if we get anything out of it. So do our curriculum friends, we've got people coming now to our schools, and a lot of it's the teachers and the facilities, but they're also selling a curriculum. Are we partnering? Which is a nice way of saying, are we getting some sort of financial benefit? The next time we buy their stuff, they're going to give it to us for free because we're advertising their product?
That was one of the things I was wondering, because it's almost a little bit of a commercial for Bridges. The Math Learning Center is a non-for-profit company, but I think this strengthens our partnership with them so that when we do want to go out for resources, Lake Forest is a school that they know, and that I'm not sure in terms of if we're going to get a deal on materials, but I think having that pipeline with the creators of the program is good for us.
It's definitely good for them.
It's definitely good for them, too.
It is a commercial. It's a wonderful commercial, but other questions?
But I think they produced that. So what we get is a very well-produced piece of information that's a nice commercial for what's happening in our schools as well. It's not cheap to produce something that's that well edited and put together.
I run a video company. I'm well aware of that. I run. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one quick one. I love that too, and that's great. After 7 years, would you suggest that Bridges has been a successful change in our curriculum, both in terms of the, call it tertiary benefits of child development and social emotional development, things like that, but we've struggled to see vast improvement in scores. I think we've seen some in the last couple of years, but over the term of having Bridges on board, we haven't seen the level of improvement that you might hope to see, I don't believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going off of memory. Are we pleased with Bridges as a learning tool or a teaching tool versus other types of curriculum that might be out there?
So my short answer is yes. I can't speak to before Bridges. I wasn't here before Bridges, but in terms of our math scores they're high. So the growth, we are seeing growth in it, but our growth, there's not as much room to grow when you're scoring at the 79th and 80th percentile in math. So yes, our results are really good. We had a couple schools that were in 27th and 56th out of the 4,500 schools in Illinois on math on the IAR in terms of proficiency. So we've got two schools that are almost top 50 out of 4,500, which is due somewhat in part to the curriculum. So yes, I think Bridges has been very successful. It's not to say there's not room for improvement, and we are working on ways. No curriculum is perfect. We're looking on ways we can supplement, especially differentiating up, because we do have such high achieving kids. So right now we're looking at how do we support teachers and kids to differentiate up, to provide more rigor. But we've been pretty happy with the results. I'm going to kind of look at the teachers over here, and I'm looking for nods. I'm hoping there's some nods in there, but yes.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mike or Jeff? Great. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you, Mike. We now move to public participation. If there's any members of the public who would like to address the board, please go to the podium, state your name. Seeing none, we move to admin reports. There are no other admin reports other than what we just saw. We move to board committee reports. We'll start off with the Education Committee. Suzanne.
The Education Committee has not met since our last meeting. We will be meeting on Thursday, March 12th.
Thank you, Suzanne. Finance and Operations, chaired by Rob.
All right. Yeah, I have several things to talk about. So we met, I don't know when, February 11th, I guess. The first thing we did was reviewed the contracts that we're going to vote on later today. So the Siemens contract, the landscaping, and the doors, which also includes writing surfaces. So the doors and writing surfaces looks like a big number, but for just 80 doors, but including the writing surfaces. So all three of those contracts were already built into the 5-year projections. So if your mind remembers what the fund balance is, none of those expenses hit that. Second, just so we're aware of it, photography for us has always been a pass-through, and we are rebidding our photography services because the market's changing and a couple of firms made bad decisions or something like that. So more to come on that. We also, as you recall, are bidding out food service, and so we got an update on that. And we're going to vote later today on the bid that the administration is saying we should accept, or recommending we should accept. For the record, the Finance and Ops did not see that bid. So if you guys have questions about the bid, we should ask Jen at the time later on. However, that said, I'll teach a little economics. Why not? There's a paper in economics called One is Almost Enough for Perfect Competition, which means if there's a firm in the market, just the threat of entry can make the market competitive. And we actually have that. So I got an example now I'm going to use in class, which is we literally only had one bid, but the price still came down. And so we're going to save about 10% in our management fees going forward. We're very happy with Quest. We knew that going in. And I would like to thank everyone who was on the committee, including Danielle Carter, who's a finance and operations member. But again, if we have more questions, we can ask the administration at the appropriate time. But finance and operations, I believe it would be true to say that we were all confident in the process that we went through. The main part of the meeting was to receive year-end budget projections. Because of all of our investments into the schools, we started the year projecting a $400,000 deficit spend for things like science labs and all that stuff. As it turns out, as we sit in February, the best projection is we will be $300,000 to the black, so a $700,000 improvement. It's for a lot of different reasons, a lot of little reasons. Let me emphasize 3 big ones. One is about $165,000 of savings in not buying substitute teachers. And so you've all heard me say before, I think our teachers are most valuable in the classroom and not outside the classroom. And so I'm really happy that we apparently are using a lot fewer subs this year for whatever reason. I guess the flu hasn't hit yet, maybe. We're also up about $175,000 in projected expenses on teaching assistants. And a lot of the work we're doing, physical work in the buildings, has come in a little bit better than we projected as well. And so all in total, somewhere around $300,000 to the black. Later on, we will also be voting on the administration's recommendations for fees. There are really 4 to talk about just quickly. Finance and Operations completely agrees with all of these, by the way. We're going to end our one-to-one fee. But it's had a long history of moving around quite a bit, and we're in a position where we think one-to-one is no longer grade specific, and so it's just part of what we do now. So we're proposing to end that fee. We're proposing a slight increase in the lunch fee, and we are proposing a slight increase in the tuition for our pre-K program, if you recall that. The one fee that will probably come back to us in some form is transportation. Whether we propose increasing it or not, I could not tell you right now, but we don't have that bid as of yet. And then finally, after all of that, our next meeting is June 15th to talk about next year's budget.
Thanks, Rob. Questions or comments regarding finance and ops? An observation, Alice, you have been a champion of bidding things out. I think the whole board shares that philosophy, but you've certainly been a champion, and I think that the Quest example just speaks to your point, that the simple act of bidding it out, we end up with a better deal. So, nice work on that.
I want to thank the admin for taking that to heart over the last 12 months at least, and really, bidding always works.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments regarding finance and ops? Seeing none, we move on to policy. chaired by Jeff.
The District 67 Policy Committee met jointly with the District 115 Policy Committee back on Wednesday, January 29th. The purpose of this meeting was to do three things. One, review and discuss the Finance and Operation Committee's recommended changes to Policy 4.20, dealing with fund balances. To review and discuss potential changes for both districts relative to Policy 5.330, which deals with sick days, vacations, holidays, and leaves. And finally, to discuss and recommend changes to the Board Operating Procedures Manual, Section 3.7, dealing with procedures for filling a board vacancy. Since these items, or at least two of these three items, are going to be addressed in tonight's action items, I won't go into any great detail. That said, I do want to point out something that I brought to the administration's attention after our December 2019 meeting where we approved the financial audit. I asked the administration at that time if the district's policies had ever been audited. And I'm happy to report that they have been. They were audited back in 2018 by the Regional Office of Education, and we received a full recognition status, which is the paper that I asked to be put in front of all of you this evening to show that according to the regional office, we are in compliance with Illinois state laws and the school code, and that we have shown documentation for everything that is highlighted or specifically articulated in our policies, which is wonderful. It just says that in our policies where we say, tab A fits slot B, do we have proof that that is indeed the case? And I'm happy to report that they've been audited and said that we do. This occurs, to my understanding, every 4 years. This last one occurred in 2018, so the next audit will occur in 2022, thereabouts. That's it. The next policy committee meeting has yet to be determined. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Questions or comments regarding policy? See, now we move on to Compensation Committee, also chaired by Jeff.
The joint D16, District 67, District 115 Compensation Committee met on Thursday, January 30th to discuss the following. We reviewed time redundancy matrices for the remaining shared service positions that we were still to review, which were the Deputy Superintendent, the Chief Operating Officer, and the Comptroller. We discussed or rediscussed comp districts that should be used in determining shared service salary bands, at least for the short term for this upcoming fiscal year. And we got into a discussion around the need for looking into hiring a third-party consultant to help both districts review the shared service business model and determine more specific salary bands for shared service roles going down the road. Coming out of this meeting, we did decide that the committee would set up, or try to set up, a joint board workshop for late March or early April to do three things. One would be to discuss and agree to a joint district philosophy or approach with regards to shared service compensation. Two would be to share a high-level salary band recommendation to help the administration guide shared service compensation recommendations for the upcoming fiscal year. And three, to get buy-in from both boards towards the idea of putting money aside in the next fiscal year to hire an outside consultant to review our shared service business model with the idea of using that to confirm the benefits of a shared service organization, recommend potential changes, establish ongoing salary expectations for shared service positions relative to their single district peers. As of tonight, though, a specific date for this joint board workshop has not been determined, nor has a future compensation committee meeting yet been scheduled. That said, I'm happy to report that the District 115 Compensation Committee did present an overview of these potential recommendations to their board earlier this month, and the initial feedback was quite positive, particularly as it related to the initial learnings and the idea of using an outside consultant to help us review the shared service business model for opportunities for improvement going forward. So that's my report.
Thanks, Jeff. Questions for the Compensation Committee? Seeing none, we move on to liaison reports. We'll start with NSSED. Suzanne?
So NSSED's Leadership Council met on February 12th, and the highlights of which were in my report. I'll touch on two things. We are actually looking at a significant branding update at NSSED, and we were almost there and found out that somebody else who had the name was actually going to start entering into a business that was similar to ours, even though that isn't what they were in. And so we are sort of taking a step back and trying again. So hopefully at some point I will have some information. This came out of the fact that during strategic planning, once we establish the vision and mission and what we were trying to do at NSSED, Northern Suburban Special Education District no longer spoke very well to our stakeholders, particularly the parents. And so we are looking at a departure from that being the name of the organization. So I will update you as soon as we have something to update. The other big thing happening that is of concern, of more greater concern, I think, in some ways, to the district boards across the region is we are working on our financial model, and it's really coming along. Our finance committee is working very hard, and we have a subcommittee, and honestly, our new chief school business official, Julie Dillon, has been phenomenal at leading this process. It is very complex. Over the years, NSSED has had a pendulum swing sort of, and never really taken the time to reflect on what are all the areas of interest that we have, and which ones do we value most, and where do we have alignment, and how can we all share these responsibilities in ways that are equitable and efficient and make the best use of resources. One of the other things that has come up in this process is that with the shifts that I had mentioned, I think it was a year or so ago, IDEA funding now goes to the districts and then to NSSED, and it used to flow the other way. Because of that, cash flow has become actually a significant thing for NSSED. Like at one point this fall, our CSBO was traveling to districts to pick up checks to be able to make payments. So they are working on how to adjust some of their billing processes. They just didn't know that they had this float that sort of existed, not that they used it for anything, it just was there until they paid it out to the districts, and that's no longer there. And their revenue stream looks like a heart rate monitor compared to ours. Ours is like tax levy, and theirs is like, we send out bills, maybe 3 months later we get payments, then all of a sudden we have lots of bills to pay and we don't have any revenue, and so they're working on that also as one of the big issues. The next Leadership Council meeting is March 11th at 7 p.m. I did send Eileen a URL for a video, but I think with her being out, it may not have happened, so I will show it at the next meeting.
Thank you, Suzanne. Questions or comments regarding NSSED? Legislative Liaison, Alice.
Hi, it's been a busy month with many topics and updates in this month's legislative report. There's a link in the board packet if you'd like to see all that's going on and more. So to sum it up, though, I had the honor of attending the 2020 National School Board Association Advocacy Institute, February 2nd through the 4th in Washington, D.C. It was a very busy time there with the State of the Union and impeachment vote going on that week as well. We had the opportunity to meet with representatives for both Senator Durbin and Senator Duckworth's office, and actually met with Congressman Brad Schneider. Important topics that were discussed included a nationwide teacher shortage, both in recruitment and retention, with emphasis to do better in both areas, the need for a more diverse teacher workforce pool, particularly English language and STEM. Ideas for improvement included mentoring and creating a support system that would allow teacher residencies with clinical experiences in the classroom, and also to move more administrative people to the classroom. Those were some of the ideas talked about. In addition, there were 5 important topics that we brought up with our legislative representatives. IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disability Education Act. The government has committed to fund 40%, but actually funds closer to 14%. And our superintendent, Mike Simic, every year brings an invoice and hands that to our legislative representatives to remind them of the money owed to our district. Seclusion and restraint is a not popular, but important topic right now too. And the Illinois group is opposed to isolated seclusion that's unsupervised versus monitored timeouts, and we shared that with our legislative representatives as well. Other topics were E-rate, school nutrition, and concern for public funds being used for private schools. Closer to home, in Illinois, Governor Pritzker delivered a state budget address calling for spending an additional $50 million on early childhood education and $350 million more for evidence-based funding formulas, $51 million for mandated grants, and over $16 million for teacher recruitment and principal mentoring. Again, the details are in the legislative report. Thank you.
Thanks, Alice. Questions for Alice regarding legislative matters? Thank you. We move to Spirit of 67 Foundation. Rich.
I have not met with Spirit of 67 Foundation. That should not be interpreted that they are not doing anything. This is actually the busiest season they have right now as they are reviewing and approving grants. So I think it's more a reflection that they don't want me to bother them. So while they do the review process. So thank you.
We will not take any questions then. We'll move on to Executive APT. Suzanne.
APT Executive Board met here on Wednesday, February 12th. We covered a variety of topics, but I will just highlight a couple things. This year's annual meeting is going to be on March 11th at Croya, starting at 9 a.m., and the guest speaker is Darren Barnt from Lake Forest High School. He's an instructional director, coach, and author of the book Extreme Teammates. Also, the APT's nominating committee, which was chaired by Monica Yaun, put forth its recommendation for a new Cherokee president, Ann Kiesling, a new Sheridan president, Heidi Clifton, executive APT vice president, Lindsay Nero, and executive APT recording secretary, Amanda Lamberti, and voting on that slate will happen at the annual meeting. Also, the Jumpstart to Fifth Grade program has been reimagined, if you will, between the DPM APT and the administration and staff, I believe, and in cooperation with the SEL committee. And so they've restructured that event based on feedback that they've gotten in the last year or so. And it will take place Tuesday, April 28th, with meeting times being offered in both the morning and the evening. And that historically has been a parent-to-parent kind of information for people who are moving up to DPM with their fifth graders, and so look for information about that. The next APT Exec Board meeting will take place on Wednesday, April 8th here at West Campus.
Thanks, Suzanne. Any questions for Suzanne regarding the Executive APT? We now move to our second public participation agenda item. If there's any members of the public who'd like to address the board, please do so. Seeing none, we move on to our action items. May I have a motion to approve the Siemens 3-year contract renewal in the amount of $45,319.52 with a 3% escalation per year?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or discussion regarding the Siemens contract? Roll call vote, please. Janice.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Mrs. Levert?
Aye.
Mr. Chun?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Mr. Borkowski?
Aye.
Mr. Englund?
Aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next up, may I have a motion to approve the landscaping service renewal in the amount of $70,415?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or discussion? Roll call vote, please, Janice.
Mr. Borkowski?
Aye.
Mr. Englund?
Aye.
Mrs. Levert?
Aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Mr. Chun?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the bid for Deer Path Middle School doors in the amount of $122,254?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or discussion?
And you said this also included riding surfaces, or?
I'll let Jen weigh in. She knows more than I.
Yeah, to be clear, we're touching 27 classrooms. Some have more than one writing surface in them, so it's actually more than 27, but I don't know the exact number. It's the removal. These are whiteboards that are adhered over blackboards, but they were not asbestos, so we didn't cover them in phase 1 last year. This is considered phase 2. So we will remove those, and they will also prep the walls. We had some crumbling of the walls last year when we removed them, so it's preparing those walls for surfaces. We will come back to the board. Our offices will bid the actual replacement, which is the track system that you purchased last year for the classrooms we did in phase 1, which were very well received. And we'll come back to the board with a request to approve that for installation this summer. So it's doors and the removal and prep of the walls.
Thanks, Jen. Any questions or comments? Roll call vote, please, Janice.
Mrs. Levert?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Mr. Burkowski?
Aye.
Mr. Chun?
Aye.
Mr. England?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the 2020-2021 student fees?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or discussion regarding the student fees?
Yeah, I misspoke earlier. So Jen has informed me in the meantime. I actually thought we were waiting for the official bid for transportation, but we actually had it. And so the bid only went up. The bid went up 5.7%, but because we moved the time of the buses to accommodate school days, we're purchasing an extra half hour of drivers each day. And so the total bid went up by 10%. And Finance and Operations talked about its fee policy, and as you well know, transportation is one of the biggest charges we have. And the Finance and Operations folks were comfortable recommending no additional fees on families. So the school district is eating the entire 10%. And so so it doesn't look like it's a proposal because it's not in yellow in the packet, but it's a holding fixed. And so we will not revisit this topic later. So we're still proposing 3 fee increases, and transportation will be held fixed next year. And Jen can now correct it if I'm wrong on anything.
Actually, 1 elimination and 2 modest increases.
So,
So I do have a quick question, just to clarify so that everyone understands, because there's a lot of question around transportation fees from time to time, and I think it's important for everybody to understand the percentage that the district pays. So the fact that you pay for your bus service, if you so choose, does not mean that you actually pay for your bus service. You pay a percentage of the cost of your bus service. What is our current breakdown, given this increase and given keeping the fees static?
Yeah, I don't have the exact number. I can tell you a little bit of the history on that. When I started here, so 14 years ago, the philosophy was that it was going to be a 50-50 split. That has slowly eroded over time with the board taking on a larger and larger percentage. And I think the last time we ran it, we were somewhere between, Rob might remember, 35 and 40 would be parent.
I would say 6 years ago it was 40, and now it's 35. A lot closer to 30 than it is 40. 35. So, yeah. And with this one, it's even going to be smaller. So parents are paying maybe 33% of the actual cost.
Rob, can you or other members of the Finance Committee talk a little bit about your rationale? So you decided to leave the fee static, which reduces the percentage. Can you talk a little bit about how you guys reached that decision?
I can. If Alice or Justin or Jen would like to talk more. There's a lot that went into it. I forget some of the details now, but as a charter school, we don't have to offer busing. That's one of the first things we talk about. We're high on the North Shore. Is that correct? We're one of the higher ones on the North Shore, so that influenced our thinking. Something about equity. I know Justin raised a question about families who really don't have a choice and things like that. So if Justin or Alice want to weigh in.
Yeah, I mean, so part of the discussion was a little bit, Suzanne, to your comment around it is an area that we hear a lot of feedback from parents in the community, especially the bus service is a service with folks who have 2 working parents in the district want to avail themselves more of. And so just as a Finance and Ops Committee, we wanted to maintain and try and keep that expense as low as the district could afford.
Thank you.
So thank you for addressing my annual question regarding transportation fees going up. So that's great news. That's good to hear, because that was going to be my question, which was, what do we expect the fees to be or go up to? So thank you for doing that. Just out of curiosity, with removal of the revenue from the one-to-one device, is that a significant impact to the budget? Is that
About $65,000 annually. So in the relative scope, no.
okay? Thank you.
Other questions or comments regarding the fees? Roll call vote, please. Janice?
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
All right.
Mrs. Levert?
Aye.
Mr. England?
Aye.
Mr. Burkowski?
Aye.
Mr. Chun?
Aye.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the Quest food service bid?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Mr. Burkowski?
Aye.
Mr. Chun?
Aye.
Mrs. Levert?
Aye.
Mr. England?
Aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the hearing officer report on the residency of student A?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or discussion? Roll call vote, please. Janice?
Mr. England?
Aye.
Mr. Chun?
Aye.
Mrs. Levert?
Aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Mr. Burkowski?
Aye.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Motion carries.
May I have a motion to approve the revised 2019-2020 calendar?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or discussion? Mike, do you want to let the public know what the revision is?
Yeah, the clarification here is a change, particularly for this current school year, to not having school on Good Friday. That's the primary reason that we needed to make a change here midstream, and the reason for that was we had a large number of staff that had requested religious observance day, and we could not find enough subs for that, and it also would have been a very problematic day of school even if we had been able to find that many. So this led us to recommend changing the calendar for this current year.
And there's a day added at the end?
There is, yeah. It will require us to go to school on Friday, June 5th. There'll be a half day of attendance, so instead of Thursday being the final day, Friday will be. So that's doesn't cause us to go into the next week, which is a critical thing.
Thanks. Other comments or questions regarding the calendar revision? Roll call vote, please. Janice?
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Mr. England?
Aye.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Mr. Burkowski?
Aye.
Mr. Chun?
Aye.
Mrs. Levert?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the first reading of policy 420, fund balances?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or discussion?
I will let the finance and ops folks discuss the recommendation that is being proposed in the change to the fund balance policy.
Thanks, Jeff. And thanks also to your committee for handling this. So it came to Finance and Operations to revisit our fund balance policy, which we do every so often. And as people may recall, our current fund balance policy is to have somewhere between 10% and 15% in the bank. And if we're below or above that, the administration has to come and make a report to the board. Also, for the record, there are different ways to calculate the fund balance policy. We calculate it, in our view, the correct way, which is not when the coffers are filled with tax money, but when the coffers are least filled with tax money. And so it's a true fund balance. And because of, there's a couple things that we thought about. One is our bond rating, our AAA bond rating that Mike talked about before, and just being economically responsible, overlooking the district. We thought 15%, 10 to 15% just felt a little low. And so we wanted to increase it. We also thought the band, though, was pretty narrow, a pretty small target to hit by the administration. And this board has, over the last, as long as we've been on it, had many plans about how to spend the money, and we're not just banking money for the sake of banking money. So we, the committee thought a better band would be 15 to 25%. We shared that in public comment in a workshop one day. And so we eventually kicked that to compensation, and compensation is now written our recommendation down, and that's what we're voting on tonight.
The only thing I'll add to that is just a quick comment about the process that the committee went through as well. So this was driven by a look to examine our philosophy as a board and how to be conservative with our financial management. But from a process standpoint, we also reviewed all of our peer districts and understood what their fund balance policies were to make sure, to Rob's point, that we weren't being overly conservative and just maintaining taxpayers' dollars for the sake of maintaining taxpayers' dollars. So we believe that this gives us the right conservative approach to managing our finances, as well as in line with some other districts that we compare ourselves with.
Thank you all. Other questions or comments? Roll call vote, please. Janice.
Mr. Chun?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Mrs. Levert? Aye. Mr. Borkowski?
Aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Mr. England?
Aye.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the update of Section 3.7 of the Board of Education Operating Procedures Manual, procedures for filling a board vacancy?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or discussion?
So just to give everyone kind of a reminder of why this is on here, when we approved the Board Operating Procedures Manual back in 2017, we made it very clear that these are not policies. These are merely procedures that the board adopted as a way to help us and to be transparent in terms of how we want to work with each other, how we want to work with the community, and how we want to maintain our alignment with board policy. That being said, we also agreed as a board at that time that changes in policy that also affect changes to the manual will be brought before the board for a vote, again, as a way to make sure things are transparent and just to make sure everybody's on board with what the operating procedures manual, what changes are being made to that manual. So I just want to make sure people understand on the board and in the public that this is not a policy change per se. We already changed that policy, if you recall, last month. It was policy 2.70, which dealt with filling vacancies. It moved the number of days required or allowed to fill a board vacancy from 45 to 60. So we wanted to make sure that similar language was incorporated into the operating procedures manual.
Thanks, Jeff. Other comments or questions? Roll call vote, please. Janice.
Mr. Borkowski?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Mr. Chun?
Aye.
Mr. England?
Aye.
Mrs. Levert?
Aye.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the human resources items as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or discussion? Roll call vote, please. Janice.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Mr. Chun?
Aye.
Mrs. Levert?
Oh, aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Mr. England?
Aye.
Mr. Borkowski?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next up is the consent agenda, and the item from the consent agenda may be removed at the request of any board member. I'll now read the items on the consent agenda. Approval of disbursements, payrolls, and financial statements dated January 2020. Minutes of regular meeting and workshop, January 28th, 2020. Minutes of an executive session, January 28th, 2020. Would any board member like to remove any item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comment or discussion? Roll call vote, please, Janice, on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chun?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Mr. England?
Aye.
Mr. Borkowski?
Aye.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Mrs. Levert?
Aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We've had a number of FOIA requests since we last met. Lori Rose, status complete. Sheet Metal Works, status complete. NBC Universal, status complete. Illinois Retired Teachers Association, status complete. 22nd Century Media, status complete. We have a few announcements. Thursday, March 5th, 2020, parent-teacher conferences, full day of school. Friday, March 6th, 2020, parent-teacher conferences, no student attendance. Tuesday, March 17th, 2020, our next Board of Education meeting at 7 p.m. right here in the West Campus Boardroom. May I have a motion to adjourn the Lake Forest School District 67 Board meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.